Chapter 28. Act 2. Land beyond the mist. I'd read about it, dreamed about it, doubted its existence, and now there it was, rising from the ocean. When Ronnie first noticed the smudge on the southeastern horizon, we'd been terrified it was more mist. Now we were close enough to discern the jagged outline of a mountainous island. As our boat sped merrily toward the unknown island, I wondered if the mist truly had transported us to a different world. The water had become a light tropical turquoise that sparkled in the sunlight. A warm equatorial breeze danced through my hair. An amazing scent filled the air, sweet and earthy, like a spice I'd never yet encountered. I marveled at the beauty of the upcoming island. Its massive angular mountains were draped in lush green velvet. Its wide sandy beaches appeared soft and white as clouds. The ocean around the island glittered in more shades of blue than I knew existed. The island had no buildings or other signs of habitation, but its jungles were thick enough to hide all sorts of secrets. Our boat turned slightly starboard. We appeared to be on course to bypass the island. Disappointment weighed heavily on my shoulders. I wanted to disembark and explore this magnificent island. But if the boat wasn't going to stop, I wasn't about to jump off and maroon myself. Panosyn had set the course of his boats for a reason. The island could be more dangerous than it appeared. As our boat rounded the southwest tip of the island, I resigned myself to a disappointing drive-by. But then, a large southern-facing bay opened before us, brimming with signs of civilization. The bay contained hundreds of floating bungalows connected by an intricate system of boardwalks and drawbridges. The wooden bungalows had thatched grass roofs and steps leading down into the crystal-clear water. Near the back of the bay, a palatial pink building with pale green turrets rose from the jungle. The shimmering turquoise bay was ringed by perfect white sand beaches. Palm trees swayed lazily in the breeze. Tiny dots of lounge chairs and colorful sun umbrellas stood sprinkled around the base of the large pink building. Our boat slowed and turned left into the bay. We were going to land. My heart filled with excitement and curiosity. Maybe this island held the answers to all our questions. Who wrote "Come and See" on the boat? What happened to Jack? Where were all the people who disappeared into the mist? Why had Panosyn built the boats in the first place?
I think that mist killed us.
What? I turned to Ronnie, brows furrowed. My host stood beside me at the bow rail, gaping slack-jawed at the tropical paradise ahead of us.
I think we're dead,
she reiterated softly.
I think we've died and gone to heaven.
I considered that for a moment before reaching over and flicking her lightly on the temple. She scowled at me.
What was that for?
Proof you still have nerve endings. I shrugged. So you're probably not dead. Ronnie rolled her eyes at me as our boat continued its slow journey through the bay. The water beneath us was so clear I could see straight down to the colorful reef below. Clouds of fluorescent fish darted between intricate coral structures. A large bluish-green dragon turtle surfaced next to us and popped up its nose to breathe. We sailed past the seemingly empty floating bungalows and headed straight toward the tall pink building. As we drew closer, our destination became clear. A stone pier jutting out into the bay. It was an exact replica of Pier 7 from its rough-hewn base to the miniature lighthouse glowing softly on its southernmost edge. But unlike Pier 7, this stone pier had no intimidating wrought iron gate blocking its entrance. Instead, it was connected to the palatial pink building via a welcoming-looking boardwalk. On that boardwalk lay two figures in beach loungers under a wide sun umbrella. The two figures sat up as our boat glided into place along the pier. They were both older men, probably in their mid-60s by the look of their wispy white hair and their knobby hands, but their bodies looked much, much younger. Both men lounged topless to showcase their perfectly sculpted muscles under tight, hairless skin. I suppose I should have been impressed by their chiseled bodies, but I was mostly weirded out by the bizarre juxtaposition of old heads on young torsos.
"Well, looky here, Cletus,"
the smaller man drawled, peering at us over his circular sunglasses.
"Looks like we've got some new guests."
"Then stop being rude and invite 'em over for drinks,"
the large man answered, reaching for a handful of something from a bowl next to him. Suspicion swept through me. What if this was a trap like the dock in the middle of the mist?
"What is this place?"
Ronnie called to the geriatric bodybuilders.
"This here is paradise,"
called back the larger one, presumably named Cletus.
"Couldn't you tell?"
Both men chuckled at the annoyance on Ronnie's face.
"Why don't you fine young ladies come share a cocktail with us and we'll tell you all about this lovely isle?"
the smaller man invited. "I'm worried the boat will leave without us," I replied. "And worried you might ensure it does," I added mentally.
"Your boat ain't going nowheres for another 24 hours,
Cletus assured me.
"So you might as well get off and enjoy your shore leave."
Ronnie and I exchanged a glance, trying unsuccessfully to read each other's thoughts.
"Them girls are too smart to trust you."
The smaller man chuckled before taking a loud, slurpy sip from his cocktail glass.
"Hey, Harold, what do you call it when someone tries to talk you off your boat?"
Cletus asked with a wily grin.
"Beats me, Cletus,"
Harold replied.
"Peer pressure."
The two old men bent over in wheezing laughter. I guess their lungs weren't as perfect as their abs. No one with jokes that bad could pose a real threat, right? I whispered to Ronnie. My host shrugged.
"I promised I wouldn't get off the boat unless you got off the boat,"
she reminded me.
"I'll follow your lead."
I frowned and chewed on the inside of my bottom lip. I hated making decisions. Wasn't that supposed to be Ronnie's job as host?
"If you're worried about the boat leaving without you, just pop out the guidance stone," Harold told me. "The boat can't go anywhere without that."
"The what?" I asked, completely mystified.
"Don't they teach you nothing in the boarding briefing nowadays?"
Cletus asked with a disapproving headshake.
"The guidance stone," Harold repeated. "It's in that pillar at the back of your foredeck. It's what powers the boats and guides them through the mist. Didn't you know?"
The incredulity in their voices made me feel foolish. I never thought to question the power source of the boats, and we definitely hadn't received any kind of boarding briefing. What else didn't I know? Ronnie stepped over to the foredeck pillar and prodded it tentatively. The pillar's front panel had slid shut several hours earlier once the bright morning sun had eliminated our need for the searchlight.
"Put your hand on the back of the pillar and hold it there till the panel opens,"
Harold instructed. Ronnie did as she was told, and, sure enough, the front panel slid open. I was expecting to see the same bright light that had guided us through the mist, but instead there was only an opaque palm-sized stone glowing faintly in the sunlight. Ronnie reached in and hesitantly closed her fingers around the stone. The moment she did, a small peaceful smile graced her lips.
"So this is the power source, huh?"
She gently removed the stone from the pillar.
"It feels nice."
"Well, come on then,"
Cletus called to us.
"This lotus tonic ain't gonna drink itself."
I looked to Ronnie, who was still cradling the guidance stone in her cupped hands. Harold and Cletus had been right about the stone. What else could we learn from them? Why not? I shrugged. Let's go and see. This is what we learned from Harold and Cletus. The island was literally named Paradise, so no, they hadn't been messing with us. Everyone on Paradise, about 1,500 people, had come from Eridet via the mist. No, they didn't have any contact with Eridet. No, they didn't know what happened if you sailed farther east. And no, they didn't really care. But yes, the Lotus Tonic was absolutely amazing. Everything on Paradise was 100% free. The food, the drinks, the lodging, the clothing, everything. We didn't have to work or do anything else we didn't feel like doing. This was Paradise, after all, and we had earned it.
So you've been here for nearly 60 years?
Ronnie asked, stirring her cocktail straw. Harold and Cletus nodded their assent.
Nowhere better to be.
Cletus laced his fingers behind his neck and gazed contentedly across the glittering bay.
Do you happen to remember a guy named Jack?
Ronnie asked earnestly.
He would have passed by here 11 years ago. He was young at the time, only about 3 years old. He was tall, dark, handsome. Any of this ringing a bell?
Oh, there's many handsome young men around this island, if that's what you came for, Harold said with a cheeky smile. But I don't remember names so well anymore. I gave Ronnie's hand a squeeze to allay her disappointment. Harold and Cletus had said over 1,000 people lived on Paradise. Surely one of them had a clue about Jack's fate.
All right, ladies, it's getting close to siesta time.
Cletus yawned and stretched his arms high into the air.
Y'all have any more questions before Harold here takes you to the welcome desk?
Yeah, I said. What's with the popcorn kernels? Throughout our talk, both men had been swallowing handfuls of what appeared to be unpopped popcorn kernels from a large bowl perched between them. The men exchanged sly grins.
At our age, you never know when you might just keel over,
Cletus explained.
And when we do, we want our stomachs to be so full of popcorn kernels that when we're cremated, we'll go out with a real bang.
Ronnie choked on her drink as the old men shared another round of wheezing laughter. I questioned the physics of Cletus and Harold's death plan, but I couldn't help but smile at their quirky characters.
Welp, let's get you ladies inside,
Harold said once he'd caught his breath. With much groaning, he rose from his lounge chair. Harold slowly led us down the boardwalk. Again, I was struck by the strange dichotomy of his physical appearance and his movements. Harold's body appeared strong and muscular, but his back was hunched and his walk was more of a hobble. Ronnie and I followed our shuffling tour guide into a wide courtyard dominated by a huge waterfall fountain. Flowering shade trees filled the air with their sweet fragrance. Vibrantly plumaged songbirds flitted between trees and called to each other with musical chirps. Harold shuffled his way up the slight incline to the tall glass entrance doors. As we followed him inside, I couldn't help but gape in wonder. Before us rose a 100-foot-high glass atrium hung with enormous crystal chandeliers. Sunlight sparkled through the crystals, scattering rainbow light across the marbled floor. The far wall of the atrium was completely transparent and provided a spectacular view of vast gardens leading into the thick jungle. 10 stories of white marbled balconies flanked the atrium. Many balconies contained beautiful people relaxing on cushioned loungers and sipping umbrellaed drinks. "Harold!" The welcoming shout pulled me out of my gawking. A grinning red-headed woman, somewhere in age between Ronnie and me, rushed toward us with outstretched arms. She was dressed in a loose-fitting blue dress and wore a giant red flower behind her left ear. It clashed brilliantly with her long, fiery hair. The exuberant woman hugged Harold and gave him friendly air kisses on either side of his face before turning her attention to Ronnie and me. "I see we have some new guests." Her face lit with a beaming smile. "Welcome to the Paradise Resort. My name is Cindy, and I'm the guest comfort facilitator." Cindy, the guest comfort facilitator, looked like she was coming in for a hug, so Ronnie preemptively grabbed her hand in a professional-looking handshake.
Hi, Cindy. I'm Ronnie, and this is my newbie, Emily. We're not planning on staying long. We're only here to look for someone.
To Cindy's credit, her smile didn't falter in the slightest at Ronnie's stiff reception. "Who are you looking for, then?" she asked in her sugary, sweet lilt. "Perhaps I can help."
"His name is Jack. He would have been here about 10 years ago when he was 3. He's tall with dark hair, always seems to be smiling."
Not ringing a bell. Cindy tapped her chin in consideration. "But I've only been here about a year, and I mostly work with incoming guests." She turned back to Harold and gave him an affectionate nudge. "What about you, you old coot? No Jacks in your memory?"
"Oh, I know Jack," Harold replied. "Jack shit."
"Harold!" Cindy gasped and smacked him lightly on the forearm. "It's not nice to mess with people. Now go back to Cletus before he causes any trouble."
"Yes, ma'am,"
Harold replied with a comically overdone salute. Then he tipped an imaginary hat to Ronnie and me before shuffling back out through the front doors. "Sorry about him," Cindy apologized in a lowered voice. "He and Cletus aren't the ideal welcoming committee, but I don't have the heart to tell them to sit somewhere else." "I like 'em," I shrugged. "They're unapologetically themselves." Cindy flashed me another perfect smile. "Well, okay then. Ronnie, Emily." She nodded to us in turn. "I know you're not looking for anything long-term, but how about I show you to the guest suites? You can stay there for a few days while you look for your friend." Ronnie and I followed Cindy down a luxurious grand staircase and across the marbled floor of the atrium. As we walked, Cindy kept up a continuous stream of logistical fluff. How everything on the island was free, how we'd earned it by sailing east, and how we'd never have to work for anything ever again if we chose to stay. Everywhere we went, we saw beautiful people in perfect physical condition. They weren't clones or anything. I spotted a wide variety in height, skin tone, hair color, and body shape. But there didn't seem to be an excess ounce of body fat or the slightest skin abnormality anywhere on the island. I grew self-conscious about the fire mark on my shoulder and the general disheveledness of my appearance. I hadn't showered in days. It had been too dark in the mist. And how long had I been wearing these same clothes? At least no one else appeared dressed up either. Paradise's dress code seemed to be chill. Some people flaunted their perfect bodies in skimpy bikinis. Others preferred the comfort of stretch pants. There wasn't a tight shoe or itchy fabric in sight. What I didn't understand was how everyone was so in shape. No one seemed to be doing anything that would lead to their well-cut bodies. Everyone was, well, chilling. Sitting in lounge chairs, sunbathing on pool floaties, or sleeping in hammocks. The people who weren't asleep smiled and waved lazily at Cindy as we passed, but that small exertion comprised the extent of their movement. Perhaps the entire island was taking a collective mid-afternoon nap between high-intensity workouts? As we turned down a wide, well-lit corridor filled with landscape paintings and potted plants, I considered Harold's claim of many handsome young men around the island. I disagreed with his assessment. The median age of the resort residents seemed to be 40-something. I guessed to Harold and Cletus anyone under 50 was young, but I was still a few months shy of my first entrance day. To me, anyone over 20 seemed positively ancient. Ronnie was only 14. "I have a question, Cindy," I said, cutting into her detailed description of the various desserts we could find in the atrium's cafe. "Where are all the redcaps?" I would have guessed at least 80% of the people who sailed from Pier 7 were members of the redcap religion. But during our walk through the resort, I hadn't seen a single person wearing a red hat. Well, unless you counted the middle-aged woman I saw sporting a red resting beach face visor. So what had happened to the redcaps? Had they all jumped ship in the mist? Surely some of them must have made it this far. Cindy looked momentarily baffled. "Oh, you're talking about members of the Our Lord of the Perpetual Exemption Church." She smiled. "Yes, we have a lot of congregants here. Most of them don't bother with the red hats anymore, though. That quaint behavior is more of an erudite thing.
The believers here are much more spiritually mature."
It was my turn to look baffled. I hadn't realized deep religious traditions could be so flippantly outgrown.
"So, who runs this place?"
Ronnie asked, switching subjects.
"It must cost a fortune."
Religious adherents say paradise is a blessing from Panosyn, but I say don't look a gift horse in the mouth," Cindy quipped with a charming chuckle. "All our needs are provided for, and we're asked for nothing in return. Why ruin a good thing by overanalyzing it?" Cindy must have heard the skepticism in our silence. "Paradise is a special reward for those of us who were brave enough to sail east," she amended. "Think about all you sacrificed to get here. You deserve an all-expenses-paid paradise after all that. So stop worrying about the how and the why and just enjoy the what. Speaking of enjoyment, here are your rooms." Cindy flourished her arms dramatically in front of a large teak door labeled 286. "Ta-da!" she proclaimed, as if she'd conjured the door from nothing. "I'm setting you up in rooms 286 and 288. She led us through the door. They're adjoining rooms, so you can be as close or as far from each other as you please. Each room comes with a corresponding overwater bungalow if you prefer to sleep out there. But during these hot summer months, most residents prefer their air-conditioned rooms." I looked around room 286 with eager curiosity. I'd never been inside a hotel before. To be honest, I'd never been inside any living space other than Ronnie's apartment and Akumi's living room. Room 286 was at least 5 times the size of my newbiehood bedroom. It had a gigantic bed with a pile of plump pillows propped against the headboard. The wall opposite the bed was dominated by an enormous viewing screen. Beyond the bed was a lounge area with a few armchairs and a coffee table, as well as a large mahogany work desk. I guessed the desk was mostly for show, since work didn't seem to be a thing here. I walked through the room toward a pair of sliding glass doors that led out to a garden patio. I looked out to see beautifully landscaped gardens full of dancing fountains and perfectly trimmed hedges. Beyond the gardens was a thick green wall of jungle spreading straight up and over the soaring mountains. "Great view after all that ocean, huh?" said Cindy proudly. "Very solid," I agreed. It was nice to be on dry land, and I loved seeing all the trees, but I missed seeing the eastern horizon. "So, this door leads to the bathroom," Cindy said, continuing her tour. "You absolutely must try the jacuzzi tub. It has all sorts of amazing massage settings. Oh, and let me show you my other favorite features of these rooms." Cindy continued her tour. Ronnie was most impressed by the Insta-closet that would scan your body, recommend cute outfits, and deliver them instantly to your shelf. I was more interested in the coffee table, whose tabletop turned into a menu screen. I swiped through various bowls of interesting-looking fruits until I pressed a button and ping! A hidden panel slid open to reveal a large bowl of strawberries, banana berries, and an exotic orange fruit the menu screen called Perengo. "Looks like you two are ready to settle in," Cindy said as Ronnie admired her new V-neck romper and I sampled my Perengo. "I just need to show you one last thing before I let you rest." Cindy rummaged around in her purse before pulling out a tiny pink capsule. It was about as long as my thumbnail and as thick as a pencil shaft. "This is a New You pill," Cindy announced. "It controls and maintains your body composition so you don't have to. You can eat whatever you like, live whatever lifestyle pleases you, and still maintain the physique of a god." So that's why everyone on this island was so inexplicably ripped. They were all on some kind of fat-killing, muscle-building, skin-tightening drugs. "You'll find one pill on your bedside table each night," Cindy continued, handing the pill to Ronnie. "If you decide to take it, make sure you do it right before you go to bed. That way the pill has a few hours to work on your muscles while you're not using them. When you wake up, you'll be refreshed and gorgeous."
"Are there any side effects?"
Ronnie asked, inspecting the pill with guarded interest. "Only increased confidence." Cindy winked. "What about lethargy?" I thought of all the lounging people we'd passed. Cindy gave me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, that's just the heat," she explained with a dismissive wave. "It saps everyone of energy, but things always liven up at night when it's cooler. You'll see for yourselves tonight. Be sure to come to the front lawn for your first beach bonanza."
"What time is that?"
Ronnie asked. "Whenever you want." Cindy smiled as she walked toward the door. "The party starts an hour before sunset and usually goes until 3 a.m. Join us whenever you're ready. Until then, enjoy your rooms and remember, all's well in paradise." She said that last bit in a sing-song voice that made it sound like an oft-repeated tagline.
Thanks, Cindy.
Ronnie and I called in unison to our red-headed guide as she exited.
"Panu, she's talkative,"
Ronnie exclaimed the moment the door clicked shut. Then she flopped onto the giant bed with a noisy exhale.
"Yeah."
I yawned, flopping down next to her. That was a whirlwind tour. My brain glazed over somewhere between the cafe menu and the clothing catalog. So, what do you think about all this?
"I'm mostly thinking how grateful I am I haven't run into Jack yet."
Ronnie rubbed her eyes with a balled fist.
"I've imagined thousands of possible reunion scenarios, but none of them involved me wearing the same stinking shirt for 3 days straight."
"I mean, what do you think of this island?" I clarified, nudging her teasingly.
"It's amazing," she said with a slight shrug. "I mean, it's literally paradise. What's there not to like?"
"I dunno." I hesitated, trying to sort out my thoughts. "I guess I'm just, a little underwhelmed. The island is amazing, of course, but the people are, I don't know, more passive than I was expecting." Ronnie didn't comment, so I continued. "I thought people sailed east because they wanted to figure out why the world works the way it does, but the people here don't seem to care about anything other than chilling. I imagined we'd find magical floating cities full of all-knowing sages who write cryptic invitations on boats. Instead, we found a beach resort full of friendly but apathetic retirees."
"We've only talked to 3 people here, Em,"
Ronnie reminded me.
"The rest of them might be very sagely. And hey, we did learn something important from those apathetic retirees."
She pulled the guidance stone from her pocket. A sudden longing filled my chest. "Can I hold that?" Ronnie gently placed the stone in my hand. I was immediately filled with the familiar warmth and peace that had guided us through the mist. I sighed in contentment. "So, what's next?"
We'd better go grab our stuff off the boat in case it does decide to leave,"
Ronnie replied.
"Then I say we clean up and check out this beach bonanza thing. We can ask all those potentially sagely residents about Jack and, all that mystery of life stuff you're trying to solve."
She waved her hand vaguely in the air. I smirked at her gesture. My motive to sail east was markedly less defined than Ronnie's. She was here to find Jack. I was here to come and see. But come and see what? This island? The people who live here? Or something farther east? How would I know when I saw the right thing? Would it have a big, "This is the thing you came to see" sign or something? I could only hope I'd recognize my goal when I saw it. "Sounds like a good plan," I said, raising my arms in a stretch. But neither of us moved to act on it. Instead, we sat in languid silence as we tried to summon the energy to go back and unpack our boat. I looked out the window where the mountains glowed in the warm, golden light of the afternoon sun. It was a majestic, awe-inspiring sight. I didn't know much about mountains. There hadn't been any near Aradet City. But I knew from books and teledramas that people were always climbing them to get a better vantage point. If Panosyn's boat had stopped at this island so I could come and see paradise, shouldn't I try to see all of it? "I'm going to climb those mountains tomorrow," I decided out loud. "Maybe I'll be able to see farther east from the top." Ronnie groaned and sank deeper onto the bed with her back on the covers and her legs dangling over the edge.
Em, you're probably the only person in history to check into a luxury resort and think, you know what? I'd rather be lost in a hot, muggy, bug-infested jungle.
I grinned.